In a world torn apart by conflicts, soldiers are constantly exposed to the dangers of war. From bomb explosions to drone operations and brutal clashes, death and injury are an unfortunate reality of being a soldier. However, there is a lesser-known cause of death and suffering in the Russian army that is slowly coming to light: alcohol. The soldiers of the Russian army are grappling with a dangerous addiction to alcohol. They are known to drink heavily and even attempt to fight while under the influence, leading to frequent fights and internal conflicts. The commanders of the Russian army are powerless in the face of this problem, and it is having a devastating impact on morale and discipline within the ranks. The story of the Drunken commander is a prime example of the consequences of alcohol abuse in the Russian army. A soldier from the 392nd Motorized Rifle Regiment, who chose to remain anonymous, spoke out about the problems he and his fellow soldiers were facing. In his statement, he revealed that soldiers were drinking heavily, leading to constant fights and brawls, even using their gun stocks as weapons. The real shock came when the soldier revealed that the commander was at the heart of the problem. He was always drunk, making obscene remarks, threatening to shoot soldiers, and even beating them. The soldier claimed that the commander was shot in the head by a captain during a fight, which was originally reported by the Russian government as combat-related. However, after the soldier's statements, the truth was revealed, and the Russian public was shocked. The soldier's words sparked a nationwide discussion, and people were eager to hear more from this brave individual. The Russian government started to track him down, but the soldier had already surrendered to the Ukrainian army to avoid being executed by his commanders. The Ukrainian army provided him with protection and comfort, and he is expected to make more revelations about the oddities within the Russian army. The problem of alcohol abuse in the Russian army is not new, and soldiers have been speaking out about it for some time now. The Russian soldiers are often forced to fight without proper resources and support, and alcohol is a form of escapism for them. Previous videos made by Russian soldiers about the unmet needs within the army have already forced the Putin administration to take measures. With the recent revelations, it is hoped that the Russian government will take action to address the root causes of alcohol abuse in the army. Why do Russian soldiers constantly have alcohol problems? It is a complex question with many answers. Some soldiers are suffering from PTSD and use alcohol as a coping mechanism, while others are simply bored and have nothing else to do. The Russian army is in dire need of reform, and addressing the alcohol problem is a crucial step towards creating a more effective and disciplined force. The Russian army, once the pride of the nation, is facing a devastating crisis that is threatening the very stability of the country. The soldiers, who are tasked with protecting their country, are facing almost unimaginable difficulties, from lack of basic necessities to rampant alcoholism. It is a well-known fact that the Russian army has been unable to provide its soldiers with the proper armor and clothing they need to carry out their duties. Many soldiers are forced to face the harsh Russian winter with no more than a thin uniform to protect them from the elements. The result is a generation of soldiers who are constantly cold and miserable, desperately searching for a way to relieve the chill that is gnawing at their bones. And this is where alcohol comes into play. In Russia, drinking vodka is a common way to warm up during the winter months, as it is believed to increase blood flow and thus reduce the feeling of being cold. But for the soldiers in the Russian army, this has turned into a dangerous addiction that is destroying their lives and their country. The Russian army, in a misguided attempt to help its soldiers survive the winter, started distributing vodka to them on a daily basis. Unfortunately, this only led to a rise in alcoholism, with soldiers drinking too much and getting drunk on a regular basis. This has led to fights, vandalism, and other inappropriate behavior that is ruining the reputation of the Russian army and its soldiers. Despite the mounting evidence of the dangers of alcohol, the Russian commanders have been reluctant to ban its use in the army. In fact, there is even speculation that they are encouraging the soldiers to drink, knowing that this will make them addicted to alcohol and keep them in the army. The soldiers, for their part, know that if they leave the front, they will not have such easy access to alcohol, so they stay in the army, even though they are ruining their own health and the health of their country. The problem of alcohol in the Russian army goes beyond just its impact on the soldiers themselves. The high rate of alcohol consumption in the army has also led to numerous fires and explosions in military warehouses and ammunition depots. These incidents, along with the Ukrainian army's ability to destroy Russian ammunition in even small arms operations, highlight the serious consequences of alcohol abuse in the Russian army. And the person who is perhaps suffering the most from this crisis is none other than the Russian President, Vladimir Putin. Known for his strict rules and his emphasis on health and physical strength, Putin is not one to tolerate soldiers drinking alcohol. The images of soldiers behaving inappropriately and constantly fighting have made him very angry, and he has often mentioned these issues in his meetings with Kremlin leaders. The situation has now reached a critical point, with Putin ordering the dismissal of commanders in all units where soldiers are drunk. But this order has not been implemented, as the Kremlin leaders are afraid that it would result in the dismissal of most of the commanders in the Russian army. When Putin found out about this, he was furious, shouting at the Kremlin leaders and demanding that someone be punished. The crisis in the Russian army is a wake-up call for the country, as it highlights the dangers of alcoholism and the devastating impact it can have on the lives of millions of people, not to mention the stability of the nation itself. The world is watching as Putin and the Kremlin grapple with this crisis, and it remains to be seen what steps will be taken to address this growing problem. But one thing is for certain, the Russian army, and the country as a whole, will never be the same again. The crisis in Russia is escalating as a result of the Ukrainian army's remarkable victory in the war. Putin, who has suffered a devastating defeat, is becoming increasingly irrational and harsh towards those around him. This has caused widespread concern in Russia, as Putin's unpredictable behavior threatens the stability of the country. According to Sunclaves, the situation in Russia is reaching a critical point, with Russian commanders reportedly considering a coup to remove Putin from power. The Russian press has been filled with intriguing claims about the escalating tension between Putin and the commanders, who no longer listen to his orders. This has caused an increase in the already palpable tension between the two groups. The Ukrainian army's victory has driven Putin to the brink of madness, and the Russian commanders are no longer willing to meet with him. The army's primary responsibility is to ensure the security of the country, and if the ruler of the country threatens that security, the commanders are expected to intervene and seize power. However, the commanders are reluctant to stage a coup, as they are aware of the consequences of taking responsibility for the war. The alcohol problem in the Russian army and the execution of a Russian commander have only added fuel to the fire. The relationship between Putin and the commanders is becoming increasingly strained, and a military coup is starting to seem inevitable. With each passing day, the situation in Russia is getting worse, and the Russian people are left to speculate about what will happen next. It remains to be seen whether Putin will be able to resolve the crisis and restore stability to Russia, or if the commanders will be forced to stage a coup to protect the country and its citizens. The future of Russia hangs in the balance, and the world watches with bated breath to see what will happen next.